Whoa. If they use that snippet, that's what people hear. It's like, yeah, did you hear? So I went to the top of the stairs and I was like, what?
Oh my gosh. Opened my eyes and Dustin's like a foot from me.
No.
On the ground.
Don't twist this.
In like a plank position. And I was like, oh my God. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Couple Things.
With Shawn and Andrew.
A podcast all about couples.
And the things they go through.
Today was a lot of fun because it's some of our best friends, Gabby and Dustin Hopkins.
We've been through a lot with this couple.
A lot.
A lot of pivotal moments in life.
Yes. We first met Gabby and Dustin when Andrew was signed to what is now called the Washington Commanders. We lived in their basement. We very quickly became very close friends, learned everything about each other's lives, the struggles we've gone through. Even since we met back in Washington, we've gone through so much. We've gone through 2 babies. And a lot of like massive life transitions, all of which we talk through.
And they've moved to Nashville. They're neighbors.
Yes.
We could walk to their house.
Yes.
We do often. And we love them. Dustin, I'm not going to lie. So football was not my natural habitat. I did not thrive in that environment. It was really a struggle for me. And it was like, I don't want to say it was like dark times, but I just didn't have a lot of self-confidence in that realm. And Dustin kind of took me by the shoulder and led me along. I'm super thankful for our friendship with Dustin and Gabby. They have a lot of amazing stories, a lot of funny stories that you'll hear, how they met. Do you remember that one?
Oh, yeah.
Stories with Shawn and I. There will be a lot of giggles. But then
Yes.
they also talk about some of the projects they're working on, including the Well Foundation. And they're doing amazing work. So they have big hearts, and we're here to support them in whatever way possible. So
Yes.
if you want to find out more about Dustin and Gabby and what they're up to, we'll link information down below, including a link to their Well Foundation. And we hope you enjoy this one with Dustin and Gabby Hopkins.
Dustin and Gabby, everybody. Welcome.
Yeah.
So a little background for our listeners. We've known the Hopkins for 5 years now, coming up on 5 years. When I signed with the Washington Redskins, formerly known, the Hopkins, first of all, you like took me home from practice that first day. I think we went to McDonald's. I crashed your date night. We got a frosty smoothie or
That's where I took Gabby for date night. McDonald's. It's a low bar. We've come a long way. I've come a long way.
We have come. Yeah, we've graduated from cheap to frugal.
That's
We're
right.
good.
That's
We're
right.
good, yeah.
Sorry, Andrew. Yes.
we were teammates. We had some great memories. You taught me ping pong and sparked that passion in me that I didn't know that I had.
But I flew out when you were playing, and we lived in your basement. Yep.
Yep.
So long
So-
history.
It is a long history. And when we offered it, it was genuine, but I didn't think y'all would take us up on it. Living in our
Oh,
basement.
living in our basement.
It was
Yeah.
one of
And
those
you
things
did. And I was like, this is sick. Finally, people that like me, I feel like she's much more hesitant to take people up on offers.
Oh,
where
same.
I'm like,
Yeah.
That was
like, ask me a question,
yeah.
Andrew.
Hey, do you want to?
Yes. That's how I am. It's like, where do I sign up? So I was glad you did that. And I think it cultivated part of our friendship. even
What was
still
funny,
today.
though, was maybe the second night, third night,
Yeah,
we
pretty
were
early on.
living there.
Yeah, yeah.
If you like walk down your basement steps, there's like the bed right there. And I was asleep. And it was, 5 a.m.? And I literally wake up, like open my eyes, and Dustin's like a foot from me.
No.
On the ground.
Don't twist this.
On like
Don't
in
twist
like
this.
a plank position, and I was like, "Oh my god, what is happening?" You literally army crawled across the floor trying to wake up Andrew, who was on the opposite side of the bed. Yes.
This is how I remember it.
See, this is like zero shock
Okay.
to me. It's like I just never know what's next.
Ready?
So,
So we had, I think we had set to leave at a certain time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
I'm waiting in my kitchen, hanging out. And I'm like, a couple minutes go by, past the time. I'm like, Andrew he'll be up in a second. A little more time passes, and I'm like, man, I don't want to be late. And I was like,
We're talking to NFL football practice.
You'd
And
have to pay
I didn't
Yes.
set an alarm. So anyway,
trusted me way too much, I guess. and she had to wake me up. No,
Oh my gosh.
so I went to the top of the stairs, and I was like, because I was like loud enough for maybe you hear, but Shawn doesn't wake. I don't know. And hatch out, nothing. So then I tipped down the steps and I see it was like the bed we had down there for y'all was like college style. It's just a mattress on the floor in the
It
middle.
really wasn't
in the
even
middle of
set
the
up
room.
yet. Like we didn't have our basement set up.
It was a
yet.
finished basement, but there was not.
It was
not.
very nice.
Oh, thank you.
It
Yeah,
was
too
very
kind.
nice.
That's generous.
And then I did in fact army crawl.
Yes.
But the way I remember it is Andrew was on my side
No,
because I
he
didn't
was
want to stand
not.
up. I didn't want to stand up because I thought if she wakes up and I'm just standing over the bed like some dark figure. It's like, what's going on? Where if I army crawl, I thought I could intercept, I could get to Andrew without you ever seeing me. And
I don't know why I remember myself on that side because I feel like I woke up and you were the first thing I saw.
oh no,
Think about
it was
It's
your
hilarious.
husband
Yeah.
the first thing
We
you saw.
didn't make our series of first impressions with the Hopkins
Oh,
were not
man.
very great, but
Like the first time I saw you.
right.
The first time I saw Andrew, I guess I'm assuming you're fresh off a plane,
Yes,
Probably.
Yeah.
and you're probably one of those things. You probably talked about this on this show before, but you don't know how long you're going to stay somewhere when you get called out for a tryout. So you're probably packing things of like, hey, I need to pack for this weather and this weather because who knows what it's going to be like in 3 weeks or however long. So when
Maybe
I
that was
first
just my fashion.
Yeah.
What I was wearing.
bless you if it
Don't-
was.
don't-
Golly. You've come a long way. Sean's got a hold of you, straightened you up. But the first time I see Andrew, it's in the training room, and he's wearing like a t-shirt, and for the argument's sake, cargo pants with like
It pretty much was.
Air Forces and a trench coat,
It pretty much was. Yeah.
and like it was like a mix of Keanu Reeves and a professional tennis player
Oh, yeah,
or something.
You were long
It was
hair, Andrew,
he had
at that
long hair.
time.
Yeah, this was
yeah.
long hair Andrew at the time, and usually I can get a good beat on people, but for some reason this first impression I was like, what am I gonna get out of this guy? I was like, I think he's the snapper, but I have no read for if I'm gonna like this guy, if I'm not, if I'm what's going on with this gentleman.
Have you made up your mind yet as to
The jury's still
whether
out.
we're gonna And fortunately, now we're neighbors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
now we're
how fun
neighbors.
is that?
Yep.
See
yep.
you.
Our kiddos, we've all got to watch each other have kids, and
Which
our
is
kids grow
wild.
up, and that's pretty cool. We've done some life.
But to dive in, why we really wanted you on the show, because we love you guys.
Okay.
I think your relationship is amazing. Truly. Everything that you guys have gone through with the NFL, your marriage,
Yeah.
dating, bouncing around with your son Wake.
Mm-hmm.
I think you guys are just like a huge testament of faith. And I love the dynamic between you guys. I think it's amazing. So I want to start by saying, how did you guys meet?
All right. Which,
Where do we start?
Where do we even begin?
Which story are you
so
gonna
Yeah, go ahead.
What, are we
when
doing?
we first met the
are we
first night.
giving the
The
real
first-
version? or
Yeah,
are we
yeah,
doing-
but
What's happening right
There's
now?
two versions.
Depending
One
on who
that
you're
we
talking to.
reserve for certain people, a certain audience, and then another
Yeah,
is a
there's-
little bit more tame.
It's an adult audience. Yeah.
Okay.
I can tell you,
We've already said the word scrotum on this.
No.
well, I thought that was pretty sure.
we have covered every single genre of like PG, PG-13, R, and X on this show with
we're
certain
not
guests.
at R. We're not
So-
at R.
Don't worry.
Not R,
it's-
maybe a little X.
Oh
no, I'm just kidding. It's not. We're having
All
a
right,
stare
so-
off.
I'm just waiting for you guys
All
to
right,
make the next
I
move.
Yes,
guess we'll
okay,
start.
perfect.
You know, so I was on the dance team
Yes.
at Florida State, Golden Girl, go Knowles. Dustin was obviously on the football team, and it was late in the year. It was a break, a Christmas break of some sort. So all the athletes usually have to stay in town, and I didn't go out in college. I kind of got all of that out in high school. So a bunch of the girls on the team dragged me out, and they're like, we're going out. So I was like, oh, okay. So we go out, and it's just super crowded, and my teammate came up to me, and she was like, oh, I'm going to this Florida State football player's house. Like, and I said, no, you're not. You're not going alone. Give me the address. I'm coming with you. Gave it to another girl and said, if we don't call you in an hour, you need to come get
Hey,
us.
this is really smart. Take notes.
Yeah, I
Always
kind
should.
of went into mama bear mode.
Yeah.
So I go with her, and I show up, and it's some harmless looking dudes on the football team. I was like, I don't really know what I was
Looking like
worried
male
about with her.
genitalia
Yeah.
with buzzed heads.
I hadn't buzzed my hair yet. Yeah.
No, at the time he had flow coming out of that hat.
What?
Oh yeah.
No.
Oh yeah. Some
So At the time, I didn't know.
Wow.
Not quite yours at
Wow.
your height, but
Yeah, he had some flow.
Yeah.
At the time, I didn't know, but I was roofied that night.
What?
Yep.
not by me.
Not by me.
Just for clarity's sake.
by a friend of a friend.
Oh
And he
my
was later
gosh.
arrested, and that's kind of how we know. So
No, he's not a friend of
a
a
lot
friend.
of the
He's
He's not a friend of anybody's.
He
Not a
was-
friend of mine.
when,
By an acquaintance of
Yeah, yeah,
someone
yeah.
else
Yeah.
we know.
Yes.
Anyway.
So a lot of that night I don't really remember, but what I do remember is someone asked me, "Hey, isn't your boyfriend the kicker at Virginia?" And I said, "Yeah, he's better than you." I literally spoke those words, and I'm like,
well, I didn't ask that, so
gotta
it must have
think
been he's better than him. But anyway,
I know where you're going. I don't have a thing for kickers.
every time we're watching TV, somebody makes a kick at any level, and I'm like, babe, I'm gonna get my act together. I'm gonna make kicks. Don't be distracted
Stay
by
with
these
me.
other guys
In
with
my
strong
defense,
legs. Okay,
it was my high school boyfriend, and he started out as a soccer player. So when we were dating, he was a soccer player. So
Wow.
I
Okay.
stand by that.
Okay.
There's a lot of correlation.
So yeah, okay, all right. I'll never live it down, but you can take it.
So you
from me, I
tried.
guess.
You started talking smack.
yeah.
Well,
So,
that's all I remember from that night, to be honest.
so I'm hanging out with a buddy.
We left. We went home. It was not
We're hanging out with a buddy, and it's a bunch of guys from the team there, and we're all hanging out, and we've been there for several hours, just not doing much. And all of a sudden, one of them says, "Hey, I've been kind of talking to a girl on the dance team. Should I call her and see if they bring some friends over?" And we were like, "Yeah. What have we been doing for the last 2 hours? You didn't. That's usually the opener,
Yeah.
So that's when he made that call and they came over.
Yeah.
And that first night, it's funny. Neither of us say that we jived with the other person.
Yeah, I was like, he's really cocky. Like, what's that guy's deal? Like,
It's because she
Yeah.
was drugged. She doesn't know what she's talking about.
here we go.
No, I was like, I wasn't feeling her. I guess maybe for the same reason. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. So then a couple nights later, we all go out again, oddly. We see him. It's super crowded. He comes up to us and he's like, "You guys want to get out of here?" And we're like, "Yeah, we all want to get out of here." And he goes, "Do you have a car?" And we're like, "No." So we pile in, 6 of us pile into his little Mustang. And you thought you were,
At that
Oh,
point,
man.
it was like we're driving down the road. I'm in like a 2-door Mustang, and there's 5 of y'all packed in the car, and I'm like, "This is college." you like, this is what they sign up for, and this should be on the brochure for recruiting.
yeah.
No,
So we get to our destination.
Hold on.
It's like an underground. Oh,
man.
you go.
Not
you
done
got
with
it.
the
You got it.
Mustang yet, Gabby.
Oh yeah, he's still remembering that high. No, so we get to this place called the Lower Lounge, just one of those grungy, nasty, like underground. Everyone smells like beer. There's bar tar on the floor. It was just like, oh, what am I even doing here? And he asked if I wanted to dance, and I was like,
this
"Yeah,
was
he's harmless enough."
later. This was later. This was another time. But anyway, fast forward to that time.
Oh, okay.
Fast forward, timeline shifts slightly for the first time I asked you to dance.
Oh yeah.
And then you tell it when you're like this way, you're like, you seemed harmless.
Oh yeah, he seemed harmless, and like I didn't really like him. I thought he was really cocky, but I was like, I really do like to dance. Like, he seems harmless. Sure, I'll dance with him.
Dangerous. So we dance, and I'm at a stage. I don't know if Andrew, maybe you can speak to this. Y'all won't be able to speak to this. There was a stage in my life, probably middle school, when Dirty Dancing first gets introduced, and a trick of the trade was you would wear like sliders or bike shorts or whatever, compression shorts,
yeah.
in order for
Dancing pants.
some good old dancing pants. Bring out your dancing pants.
Yeah, you got to keep it all.
You got to keep it all
organized. Yeah.
under control.
My God.
You know,
Under wraps,
you got
if
it under
you
wraps,
will.
even better. Yeah, under wraps.
100%, yeah.
And so, I thought I was past that stage. I was like, I don't wear those anymore because I can control that. You
I'm a
know,
grown man.
grown man status. So anyway, I invite her to dance, and we start dancing, and get a little blood flow, and we'll leave it at there. So we're dancing, and at first you're trying to like stay close enough to where there's no separation, because if separation occurs, then a quick stabbing could occur.
So
And there's no hiding. There's
no,
no hiding
and
a
there
style.
were quite a few stabs. Let's just put it like, I mean, I'm getting just like hammered in the back. Like,
Whoa. If they use that snippet, that's what people hear. It's like, yeah, did you hear? First time they met. I'm gonna allow my wife to rephrase what just was said.
I mean, how do you rephrase it? I felt his excitement hit me a few times. I don't know.
Yeah, she did. No, anyway, so I'm sitting there like, oh my gosh. And it's like, but there's no, like, I can't just scurry off mid dance. Like, what do I do now?
And in my mind, I'm like, wow, this is awkward. Like, how do I exit this situation? But also, like, well, it's awkward for me. It's gotta be really awkward for him. I mean, that's embarrassing.
So we're all feeling that tension in the air. And so, you know, have you ever been in a situation in a bar or something? You're trying to have a conversation, but the music's so loud you have to like yell, whisper. No. So that's the scenario we're in with the loud music. So in order to break this tension up, I guess, and apologize for what's taking place, I lean down into her ear.
He's behind me, like right here.
And I'm like, sorry about that. Sorry about that.
To which I'm like, man, that's just this is awkward.
Even
this
more
embarrassing
awkward
for him. So I was like, it's okay. It's kind of like a compliment, I guess. Like, thinking like, okay, we can like part
Call
and like
quits,
exit the dance floor. Instead, Dustin just, all right, and he just keeps going. And I'm like,
well, she's
okay.
well, it's kind of like compliment. I was like, well, let me compliment away.
Oh my gosh.
In hindsight,
So,
you know, I guess it worked.
In hindsight, you got married.
Yeah.
And then we got married. But what's funny about this is like, so shortly after we all walked to the McDonald's and everyone's like, where's Dustin? And I was like, what? And so I turn around.
Sean's first reaction. Oh, no.
Oh no.
And so we turn around and Dustin is helping up a homeless man and brings him into McDonald's and buys him a meal and sits over separately with him. And that was when I was kind of like, okay, like he's different.
Mm-hmm.
There needs to be more of that in the world. Like maybe he's not this cocky,
Are you sure it wasn't the
weirdo kind of guy
dancing?
that I thought he was. Like he's really wonderful. I would like to get to know him some more.
That was the same night.
It was within a 10, 15 minute span of each
the dance and the dinner.
complimenting
Yes.
me and then a homeless man at McDonald's.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's
So meet, car ride, gap in space, dance. She became available.
yep.
We had danced, but still weren't. We were just hanging out as friends at that point.
Yeah. We started going to the same
Yeah.
Bible study together, and started seeing each other a lot.
What a dichotomy!
I know,
right?
I know what we're talking about.
I didn't plan on the
compliments
way the dance went, but
Yeah.
But yeah, and then things kind of progressed, and yeah, here we are.
How long did you date before you got married?
We dated for about 4.5 years. 4
Yeah.
years.
And the overlap of when did the NFL come into play?
the last year, the
Yeah.
last 6 months,
Last year
no,
dating?
last year.
It
Of
was,
dating.
Yeah, last year of dating. I still they had changed my major at Florida State, so that put me behind graduating a little bit because I had to pick a new major. And you left for the 2013 draft,
To go to Buffalo.
right?
Yep.
So we had some time apart at that point, and there was you wanted me to come move out to Buffalo, or you wanted me to move to Dallas, is what it was. And like set roots out in Texas, but I had some really amazing career opportunities in New York City. And so I kind of told him, I was like, hey, listen, I'm not going to give up these amazing opportunities unless like, are we talking marriage? What are we talking? And he said, we'll be engaged by the end of the year. And I said, okay, I'll move to Texas.
What were you going to do in New York?
I had some really great opportunities with Elle Magazine and Vogue Magazine.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I was in fashion merchandising and product development. So
Huge mistake.
Yeah.
This is what
I
she got
mean,
instead. Yeah.
Was that a hard
Okay.
decision? When he came back and said, we'll be engaged by the end of the year, was that still a hard decision of like,
easy decision.
awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. And kudos to her. So I remember I was praying about it at the time in Buffalo. We were apart and we'd been dating for quite some time. And out of respect for her and me, I was praying. I was like, Lord, if you don't want us to be together, then make it clear so that like she can go and live her life and I'm not wasting her time. and I'm not wasting my own by pursuing a relationship that's not like leading to marriage, which was always my goal. And so I'm praying about that. And around that same time, I was hurt in Buffalo as well. And I guess you say that I wasn't myself
Yeah,
on the phone, I guess.
He just wasn't his. You guys see him. He's a very animated, kind of happy, go with the flow kind of guy, like super positive attitude all the time. And I could just hear in his voice, like you were almost dejected, and you're just kind of like, man, like you were having a hard time, and I could feel that and hear that.
And it's one of those things, like, I don't even think I recognized it really at the time, but like, it's awesome having people you love around that can recognize that stuff. But she got me a gift as I was praying about that. And the gift was nothing against iPads or whatever, but it wasn't like some gift that you could spend a good amount of money on and give, which is awesome. But she had called like all my closest friends and family and had them write like letters of encouragement to me. And she like put it in a binder and sent it. And I remember it was the first time I think I'd cried over a gift. I was like sitting there.
I didn't know you cried over it.
Yeah, I've surely I've told you that. But yeah, so it was the first time I was cried over a gift, and I remember being like, this is the kind of wife I would love to have in my life. It's like that sees you for who you are enough to like recognize when you need encouragement and when you might need a kick in the butt or whatever, but they can see both and then support you in a way that is beneficial for both parties, but especially when you're kind of down in the dumps. Yeah. So
that's good.
It was really cool. I don't know. It solidified to me as I was praying over that. I was like, this is my future wife. Yeah.
I was reminded of this statistic the other day and wanted to share it with you all. Did you know 1 out of 6 couples struggle with infertility?
Wow.
Seriously, that's a staggering statistic that most people don't know or aren't ready to talk about, which is why we need good data and information about our bodies in order to have informed conversations with our doctor.
I feel like a lot of people tend to overlook that, and it's honestly so important to talk about, especially when thinking about planning for a family.
It really is, but that's why Modern Fertility was created. It's an easy and affordable way to test your fertility hormones at home with a simple finger prick. Mail it in with a prepaid label, and you'll get your personalized results within 10 days. You'll get insight into your hormone levels, your ovarian reserve, aka how many eggs you have compared to other women your age, and other important fertility factors.
Traditional testing can cost over $600, but Modern Fertility gets you the same information at a fraction of the price. And if you go to modernfertility.com/EastFam30, you can get $30 off your test. Plus, you can get reimbursed for the test through your FSA or HSA.
Right now, Modern Fertility is offering our listeners $30 off the test when you go to modernfertility.com/EastFam30. This is a limited time offer for $30 off. That means your test will cost $169 instead of the hundreds or thousands it could cost at a doctor's office.
Get $30 off your fertility test when you go to modernfertility.com/EastFam30. Again, that's modernfertility.com/EastFam30.
Let's get back to it.
How'd you propose?
So I had reached out to a really good, or this is, I was not going to say this, but I don't think Candy would mind.
No.
So the Fishers, Jimbo and Trey and Ethan, they're and Candy, they've been affected by a disease called Fanconi anemia. It's a blood disorder, and they had started a foundation, and so through that foundation, we'd done stuff with them, and our football team did a really cool thing where, like, I think it's called Be the Match. I think where they, you have to
Cheek swabs for bone marrow donors.
yeah, do bone
matches.
marrow donations and stuff. If you find somebody, it's apparently very difficult to find a match. But they had started that, so I reached out to her and I was like, hey, I don't know if you're okay with this or if you're comfortable with this at all, but I need to get Gabby somewhere where she's dressed up, because I know she wants pictures. That's a discussion we had. She had dropped some hints. I was like, I don't want to mess that up. So I know she needed to be dressed up, but I didn't know a way to do it where she wouldn't be tipped off. So Candy was awesome, and she like had a flyer made up of like a fake fundraiser for this. And so I contacted Courtney, one of your best friends, and a close friend of mine now as well. But to like say, hey, like they want you as a representative from the dance team, like for the school to be like, you know, say a couple things, or I forgot how it was worded, but
You wanted me to present Candy with an award.
oh yeah, there you go.
Wow.
So she got dressed up. It was supposed to be at the stadium, and so
And this is the night before my graduation.
Oh wow.
So, and Dustin is supposed to be in Buffalo. So
yeah, I was like,
knew
hey, I
he's not
can't
coming
make
my
it to the graduation. That was the whole narrative. And so when she rounded the corner, I was standing on the 50-yard line of the stadium, but it was just empty. The lights were on. It was just me
Sick.
and her walking in.
And it's also where he asked me to be his girlfriend the 4 years prior.
Wow.
So as she's walking up, and then she looks, and we had my family and her family in the stands,
Oh my
like,
gosh.
like being like, yeah, hey, yeah. So that's how it happened.
Did you know before you got to the stadium?
No, I had no idea.
Did you know in the stadium?
That's freaking dope.
She's tough
I
to
remember
fool,
we
too.
pulled up to the stadium and obviously all the lights are on, but I was like, man, for there to be an event going on, like it's pretty quiet. I was like, there's not a ton of cars. I was like, that's weird. So then we get into the tunnel and I'm like, it's really quiet. Like, are we really early? I thought we were late. And then I rounded the tunnel and then just saw him standing there and I was like, oh, okay.
Another piece of story, I felt horrible. My family, we were driving in from Texas, the way I remember it, and we were late getting there for the event.
Oh gosh.
Right? So we weren't late already, but we were like, man, things are tracking. We're late. We're not on schedule. And so we get to the hotel. Her parents are at the hotel. They knew I was surprising her for graduation, but they didn't know why. Because her parents live so far away, I did not want to ask for her dad's blessing over the phone. I wanted to do it in person.
Oh no.
So I get there, we're at the hotel, and it's like, you greet everybody, hey. And I was like, Mr. Barrett, can I talk to you for a second? And he's like, yeah. And so I like tell him how much I love Gabby, and like I want her to be family and then be family. And he gives me like a speech that you can tell is like very heartfelt, talking about how like when he had Gabby, like held her up and prayed over her, and a number of really, you know, loving things toward his daughter. And I was like, that's amazing. We've got to go because it's happening right now. You know, he's like,
Are you okay with it?
yeah. So as soon as he like gave me the go ahead, I was like, that is awesome. Like, thank you for sharing that with me. We're running late right now. Like, we need to leave. We need to get everybody together.
So I'm hearing all this on the
Like,
back
we need-
end. I'm like, what if he had said no?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I was doing it anyway.
No,
Okay, all right.
Well, maybe. But I had a pretty good feeling that he was going to give me his blessing, but I just didn't want to do it over the phone.
Yeah.
And so it was quite rushed, and I still feel bad about it to this day. But so then I tell her sisters and her mom, and I was like, same thing. Great, but we got to be ready to go in 10 minutes. Like, go upstairs and do your thing. We got to roll.
Go get ready.
I have
Yeah.
a question
and
to
it-
ask you, but not time enough to hear your answer. Okay, so just let's wrap it up.
Yeah, I was
Okay,
like,
yeah.
yes. And then also, I forgot this when I proposed. Do you remember what I said?
Yeah.
You tell it.
I remember he proposed. I hadn't even looked at the ring. He put it on, and we're hugging or we're kissing or something. He goes, by the way, that ring's not yours. Don't get attached to it. And I'm like,
Oh my
huh?
gosh.
What?
Just-
I was like, what?
I still,
And then, but then also just like, it's like, okay, this is a very Dustin thing. Like, okay, what's the deal here? And so he got it as a loaner. Like, and so, yeah. He's like, we'll find one eventually.
I got it. Somebody
Like,
loaned it to
okay.
me, and so I wanted to be very upfront with. After she said yes, and she's looking at it, I was like, by the way, that is not yours. Don't get attached to it, because
And then he was like,
I don't want to
also,
buy this one,
lose
actually.
it, because
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
want to pay for that. And I was like,
And in the back of your head, you're
okay.
like, it might look different. I'm not sure,
Yeah.
but we'll figure this out.
Yeah.
just
So-
that's it. And then we started talking to the family, and the subject matter got shifted very
Yeah.
quickly.
Good. Yeah.
And here we are.
So then engaged how long?
6
Ooh,
months.
It was
Okay.
like 6 months. Yeah. We didn't want to wait until, because I mean, football season, you have to kind of time things for the off season. And we weren't going to wait like a whole nother like year and a half. So we're like, yeah, we're doing this in 6 months. My poor dad, my sister got married about 38 or 40 days before us. So
Oh yeah.
poor PB had to handle 2 weddings in that span of time, but we made it work. And
And then married 3 years before Little Wake Man.
was it 3 years?
Married in
Yeah,
2014.
Wake was born in
2017.
2017.
Yeah.
So yeah, about 3 years.
If you don't mind me asking, how do you want to share your pregnancy story?
Sure. Yeah. I'm pretty open about it.
Yeah.
I did not have an easy pregnancy. I didn't have an easy delivery. Even pre-pregnancy, I was told that I would probably not get pregnant naturally. I would probably have to do IVF, and even that may not work. So we were told that, but we weren't even really in the headspace of like babies yet. So we're like, okay, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So fast forward, we go to Europe, and then we came back with a surprise positive pregnancy test. So that was a shock.
But also amazing.
Yeah. Yes. Blessing. Amen. And yeah, I guess I was kind of starting that pregnancy not really in a great headspace. It had been a long few years of moving around a lot because of his profession, and
I was on 3 different teams in the first 3 years. It was just a lot. It's hard.
And it's hard to find
for anybody, but especially your spouse.
Yeah, it's hard for the women to find community. The guys, they're thrust into a locker room and spend 12 hours a day with each other, and it's just
me
harder.
and Andrew are so close.
It's just harder for significant others to kind of get plugged in. So we had done a lot of that. I was pretty unhealthy, and I was honestly depressed. So starting off a pregnancy like that isn't easy. And then anything little that could have gone wrong for pregnancy kind of happened to me. I also had a breast cancer scare. I had to have a wrist surgery, and I had to be awake for it.
He's a boss. Yeah, had carpal tunnel awake.
Yeah, like
Jeez.
so bad that my OB and an ortho were like, no, we have to do this now, kind of a thing. So that was fun. I was just really sick. I had super swelling. And the delivery was traumatic. I was told 2 weeks early that they were going to induce me. And yeah, so I labored for like 28 hours, and he got stuck at 9 centimeters and tachycardic, and I got a fever, and they ended up having to do like a semi-emergency C-section. So the way that the doctor put it to you was that I got hit by a bus twice, basically.
It's like, yeah, basically you almost had the baby one way, and then you had to have it completely the other way.
Yeah.
So it's like you got several things to recover from as you.
Yeah, and C-sections are no joke. They are no joke. Yeah, and I mean, we had some family dynamics happening, during the labor and delivery also, that I think just didn't help a lot of things. And
Like literally during the labor?
yeah.
It's like the most stressful
Not
time.
like not at the location, but just generally during that time.
okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And so we had a lot of hardships surrounding Wake's birth. I had postpartum depression and anxiety pretty severely. I think I hid a lot of it from Dustin because I didn't want to be a burden. And I was kind of told by someone that I was a burden and that I needed to figure it out. And that's hard to hear as you're in your most vulnerable place, right? You just had a baby, your hormones are everywhere. And being told that, you kind of don't really matter and you're being a burden to someone, that's kind of tough to hear. So, I kind of started coming out. I think I told you 2 years ago. Was it 2 years ago? I was suicidal. I tried to end my life 3 times. And honestly, only by the grace of God that I'm sitting here right now. And yeah, I only ever told you even that 2 years ago. And now I'm starting to be really open about it because I think it's important for young, vulnerable moms they're not alone. I mean, I felt that I was the only one going through it, when in reality, it touches almost everybody now to a degree. And Dustin, you were amazing through that process. I think.
Sorry, you go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, I think he knew something was up.
I knew she wasn't herself, but I was like, you try to you ask questions and you try to support them, but to some degree, you're like, I don't know what to do. Yeah, and I just was believing those lies that my brain was telling me that you're not good enough, you're not strong, you're weak. I thought being medicated would be a failure. Somehow that would mean that I failed as a mom, or that my faith was failing, that I didn't have a good enough relationship with Jesus, that he couldn't deliver me from this. And I was just believing all of those lies. And in retrospect, it's so silly. But when you're in it and when you're in that darkness, it's so real and it's so heavy. And
we were at a conference last week, PAO. It's
Pro Athletes Outreach.
Athletes Outreach, and we were worshiping. There was a worship band up, and all of a sudden, it just hit me so hard last week, and I just started crying, and I leaned over to Dustin, and I was like, I'm just so thankful that I'm here, because I would have missed out on all of this. I would have missed out on our son. I would have missed out on such a beautiful life and the community that we've gained, and just life. And I just I looked at him and I just started crying during worship last week. And yeah.
I'd be curious to hear each of you talk about these, like the depression and the suicidal periods.
Yeah.
One, how do you view it now? Is it like that's behind me, or something that you're always looking out for? And then also, what helped you through that period, like when it got bad?
I think I'm definitely on the other side of that now. Like I don't have those thoughts anymore. I think it's something that I'm very conscious about moving forward, and now being able to connect certain thoughts and patterns that I have, and stopping myself before I even get down that road. I take much better care of myself now. I'm exercising. I'm watching what I'm eating. Like, I'm eating clean foods instead of ultra processed things, kind of. And I'm trying to get sleep. I'm just trying to be overall healthier. And I feel it's just so much better. And then I think telling Dustin was huge for me. That was a weight lifted.
Is there shame within that? Like,
of course there's shame, but that's also the enemy feeding that to you, that's a shameful thing, when in reality it's not. The shameful thing is keeping that in and living that way, because no one needs to do that. There's always help, whether that's your spouse, a friend, a therapist. I mean, there's nothing shameful about being so low. That, I mean, it's a part of life, but also a part of life is your community and not walking things alone. And honestly, what got me through it, the 3 times that I went to act out what I was going to act out, it's just a couple things stopped me. One was, I'm a burden now, but this is going to be a burden when I'm gone. Like, and I don't know why, but I was like, I just don't want to be a burden. I think that's also me being a people pleaser too. And 2, I just had this sense of like, I can only attribute it to being God in those moments of being like, step away. Like, no. And just not, it's just the grace of God, to be honest. Yeah.
Dustin, I remember different scenario, but I remember being in a similar situation with Andrew, not postpartum, but this was like when we were early married, trying to come clean with like eating disorders and like depression that I had and all of these things that I felt very shameful for. Yeah. And I was so scared to tell him that I hid it for so long and tried to like manage it on my own. Receiving that as a husband, what was your initial thought? Because I feel like as the person who went through it, you're like, you have this fear of like, oh, they're just not going to understand or want to deal with it. You don't want to be a burden.
Yeah.
But I feel like hearing your perspective is.
So memory's not my strong suit, but I'll try my best to take myself back to that place. Well, I think initially I was just happy that she's telling me, because if she's telling me, then I thought that was a step in the right direction. It's like, and it made you, or it makes me sad. It made me sad. It's like, and this is another lie at the time. You hear to yourself when you hear that, it's like, man, you weren't doing enough to help. And that might be, there might be some truth in that. Like, man, maybe I could have supported her in different ways now that my eyes are open to that. At the time they weren't, but it was more believing like, oh, you didn't do enough to support her. Like, you hear that for a second, and then it's like, you kind of snap out of it. It's like, no, it's like, this is, like she said, circumstantially things happen where you get to dark places, you get to great places, and this is just one of those times. So I was just glad that she told me and that she wasn't alone anymore. Just dealing with that all by herself. Because I think there were times when I knew, like I said, I knew stuff was wrong, but I didn't know to the extent that I was like, hey, should we go see somebody? Like, do you need to go see somebody alone? You want me there? Anything? And it was more, I felt, if I remember correctly, it was like, no, I'm fine. Like that kind of vibe. So then at that, you don't know how much is, I don't know. It's almost weird to like force somebody to like, you're going, you know, and yeah. So I think those are some of the struggles of navigating. How do you do that when you see something is wrong? But I think ultimately there is a, I don't know, I guess there has to be a willingness of the person to walk with you in that. And the person hearing, this time being me, being like just open to the fact that everyone is susceptible to that in the right circumstances, regardless of how strong people think they may be, you know? Yeah.
This show is brought to you by BetterHelp.
BetterHelp is a trusted brand that has been in our life for several years.
If you've been listening to our podcast for a while, you know we're big fans of using therapy to strengthen our relationship as well as ourselves individually.
Being a wife and a mom, sometimes it's easy to get caught up in what everyone else needs from you and not take a few minutes to focus on yourself. But if I don't take that time, I can feel so burnt out and stretched thin. It's so nice having an outlet to talk to a professional, and therapy helps you learn the tools to have more balance in your life so you can show up for your family as the best version of yourself.
You've been doing a good job with that, babe. I appreciate that. And I agree with what you're saying. And if you're thinking of giving therapy a try, we highly recommend BetterHelp. It's convenient, flexible, affordable, and entirely online.
All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with the licensed therapist. And you can also switch therapists anytime for no additional charge to make sure it's a right fit for you.
If you want to live a more empowered life, therapy can help you get there. Visit betterhelp.com/EastFam today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/EastFam. We'll also link it down below. Let's get back to it.
Did you have the self-awareness, like in the moment, that you were suffering from like postpartum depression?
Yeah.
So did you feel like trapped within that you couldn't?
Very much so. It's just it's a strange place to be in, and it's almost out of body sometimes, where it's like, you know, this isn't me, like, but it's also, this is my reality right now. And how do I get out of that? How do I get back to me when that's really not the mindset? Like in retrospect, thinking about it, it's like, I didn't need to go back to who I was, but I needed to grow into who I was like going to be. And that was something that I had to go through and make it through. And in retrospect, I should have asked for help. I should have been medicated. There's no shame in any of those things. But in the moment, your brain's telling you differently. And if I had had maybe Dustin or some other friends that I had told in that moment, and for them to know the depths of where I was in that moment, I would have gotten the help that I needed, but I didn't because I felt shame. And in retrospect, I wasted 4 years of my life to darkness when I could have been kind of freed from that.
I'm sorry you went through that, Gabs. I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, it's definitely something. I think we started being a little more public with it maybe about a year and a half ago, just because I've made it through. I've learned a lot of things, but I don't know, if someone can relate to what I'm saying and say like, oh wow, it's not just me, like she went through that too. If it's just one person that I can help with that, then I will scream it to the rooftops of what I went through.
I think part of what you said earlier was like believing that, like part of the lie is you're all by yourself. Yeah. You're all alone. So I think that's why in your communications with me that you've been more open is just what you said. Like, don't believe the lie that you're alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember about a year ago when you told me, and I didn't even know if this would be a topic talked about today. Yeah. But
always looking for a storyline for your show.
No.
Stop.
I'm joking. I'm joking.
It's not even on our sheet, okay?
I'm joking.
This freaking guy.
The East are they're amazing.
Backpedaling.
Yeah. Well, Nash and Andrew and
The friendship is
Jet and
now
Drew are
ended.
amazing.
But
Sorry.
jeez. I remember being obviously sad because like
Yeah.
we had known each other for a few years by then.
Yeah.
And I had no clue. But I also remember feeling seen for the first time. Just like we didn't go through the same things, but we went through similar things where it was like I felt so lost. And I've tried so many times to explain it to Andrew, and you're so supportive. But it's this feeling of like I can't tell you how it feels to feel like you're trapped.
Yes.
And I really thank you for talking about it because I feel like there's so many women and men, but especially moms who go through this that feel so isolated
Yeah.
and like they're a burden and like they can't ask for help. But I think we can show you there's 2 husbands, 2 for 2 so far, that are very supportive, and people should ask for help more often.
I also, since it's top of mind, we just got done speaking with a pastor who's really big on knowing your identity. One, you've personally blessed my life by blessing my wife. Drew loves the Hopkins.
Oh.
We have this thing where we're going to Dustin's house, and she'll
she's
go,
like,
Dustin, no,
Gabby.
Gabby, no,
No,
Wake. Yeah, we got all thing. But you use this term like you felt like a burden, and there's like, well, I don't want to be more of a burden even if I do this. It's like that's a bit of identity, right? And anyway, I wanted to read you some of these things because this is more the Gabby that I feel like I know you. One, you've been fearfully and wonderfully made, Gabby, and you're a masterpiece because you've been made in the image of God. Even your weaknesses are like cracks in a clay pot through which God's light can shine through. Like, so yeah, talking
His
about
strength is
openly.
made evident in our weakness.
Yes.
There you go.
And then Ephesians says, we are God's masterpiece. He created us anew so we can do the good things he planned for us long ago. So anyway, it's like, you're not a burden. You're a blessing. And the more that you realize that you're a blessing, the more you can be a blessing, right? So anyway,
Amen.
I'm excited and glad to have you guys here as neighbors. But
We're going to have to bring you on for like part 2, part 3, part 4,
well,
5.
I'm looking
to
at this
10.
clock. I'm like, Wake's got to
know.
get picked up. But
Wake
tell
needs
us
picked
about
up.
Wake, please.
Wake. So Wake will be 6
Yes.
next week.
I cannot believe that. I feel like I met him when he was 2
or 3.
Yeah, he was itty bitty.
Yeah.
Wake is on the autism spectrum. He is non-speaking currently. He is the coolest little guy in the whole world. He's funny. He is so smart. He's sharp as a tack, and he's a huge blessing to our life. And he inspired our nonprofit, and just him purely existing, has now helped other families with special needs kids, and adults, and single moms with special needs kids have all been helped solely because Wake exists. So
He's Drew's
That's
best friend.
pretty cool.
Drew lights up whenever he comes over. Oh my gosh.
well,
No,
Wake he was grabbing his bathing suit yesterday at home, like
he's-
let's
he
go
was.
to the
He's
East
gotta
House.
Come over to
It was
this.
a little
Yeah.
chilly yesterday.
Yeah.
We didn't get it.
And we're like, buddy, not today. But yeah, but
Well, what a blessing y'all have been, because I think one way to help families with like kiddos on the autism spectrum with special needs in general is just be there and live life together. So
Yes.
y'all's ability to just like welcome us in,
and meet us where we are,
And
and,
take-
meet Wake where he is.
take Wake exactly how he is, and
Well,
yeah.
on the same subject of what we were just
Yeah.
talking about, Wake is not a burden. He's
No.
a
No,
blessing.
he is
Yes.
fearfully and
So-
wonderfully made.
Also know that, like,
Yeah.
we love
That's good.
Wake.
Well-
you know, he's not.
And it's something that I noticed very early on with you guys. It's like you work so hard to make sure that people don't feel burdened by you guys. And I think that one makes me so sad that the world has ever put you in that position, right? That anybody would ever make anybody feel like a burden. I don't know how to say it. So whenever you guys come over, whenever we're around you, we're like, stop. Like, let him jump and be loud and wild. And he's such a beautiful soul. And he's exactly what God made him. And he's just amazing.
Like,
that's right.
that's such a blessing. Honestly, just y'all's friendship and the community that even you guys have been so generous with your social circle and your community, and just us meeting other people and connecting with other people and connecting with even some other families that have special needs kids, all because of just your generosity and your kindness and your compassion. And so thank you guys so much. Really, truly, you've enriched our lives and Wake's lives, and we love doing life with you guys.
Starting from the mattress on the floor and the army crawl.
But the conversation's not over.
It is. They have to get
no,
Wake.
no.
Oh, we got some.
2:45. Yeah, well, we got to
Yeah,
talk
yeah,
about the
we
well.
got some time.
We have 4 minutes because it will end up being longer than that.
Tell us about the Well Foundation. You mentioned the nonprofit. Let's hear more about it.
Yes. The Well Foundation, we started a handful of years ago. And at first it was kind of acting like almost like a donor advised fund of sorts, where we'd tithe to that charity, our own charity, but give to IJM, International Justice Mission, Compassion International, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and then Young Life were kind of the 4 that we were giving to. And then when we had Wake and all these things started to develop, you go through. Well, we realized how blessed we were in so many ways with the resources we had at our disposal, whether that's team doctors who have connections to other doctors, financially not being at a place where we're like trying to I don't know if we're going to be able to pay for his therapy. It's so, but life was still very hard.
Yeah.
Like navigating all that to something that really doesn't have a standard step-by-step.
Yeah, there's no guidebook to autism.
Yeah. The saying is, once you've met one kiddo on the spectrum, you've met one kiddo on the spectrum. Like there can be a wide array of differences and
Abilities.
Yeah. So it's hard to navigate because you're just figuring out, how does this work for our family? How does this work for our child? And so navigating that, we realized how hard it was, and that we'd want to help people that didn't have some of those resources that we had, and help them walk through that. So, like Gabby mentioned earlier, we've been able to help several families who are like maybe single moms navigating that, walking through that journey with a special needs kiddo.
How can we ease that burden financially, and also how can we get people in touch with certain resources and therapies that otherwise wouldn't have a fighting chance to do so? So that's kind of what we're passionate about right now. And
Long term, we'd love to, I think this is a number of years down the road, but do some form of child housing. As good as state services are, they only last so long. As parents, you're like, or what will his life be like when we die? Or like, who's going to watch after him, or what are these things? So just having a place where they can learn these life skills and be supported, and hopefully come to a place where they can live life on their own.
We will link the Well Foundation.
Yes. And we also need to just say that, you mentioned your opportunities with Elle Magazine and Vogue design. Gabby is a phenomenal photographer and is also responsible for this space that you see right now.
Yeah.
This is Gabby's doing.
I did do that.
Literally.
You hung those, so I'll give Dustin the credit. I had him hang.
I did that.
Go check out Chargers versus Broncos 2022. Dustin Hopkins game-winning goal, post-game interview. Freaking rock star, dude. What a legend. A kicker gets the primetime interview spot.
It actually was incredible.
We love y'all.
Cutting you off.
Dustin, you're welcome.
And scene.